You know, earmarks is like a dirty word in Washington, but it seems everyone wants in on doing special favors for their constituents in Washington. Even when they crack down on it, do you ever wonder whether they ever return the money? Well, these next two gentlemen are doing just that. Almost $2 million worth. Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul, Kentucky Agriculture Commissioner James Comer. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you. Senator, can you tell me what's going on here?
Well, we hope it's contagious, turning money back in. I'm turning $1.3 million in total since I've been in the Senate, and I'm here with Commissioner Comer, who can tell you what he's turning back in.
Go ahead and tell us, Commissioner.
Well, we're real excited. We shut down a fuel testing lab in our state. The Department of Agriculture is responsible for fuel testing for the state. We shut it down. We privatized the services. We eliminated the state employees that were working there. We eliminated those jobs, turned it over to a private company. There was an earmark for $1.65 million to construct the fuel lab. We auctioned the fuel lab equipment when we privatized that government service, and it brought enough money to return to the taxpayers for $1.65 million. I was inspired by Senator Paul to show quantifiably what we're doing at the Department of Agriculture to save taxpayer money, and hopefully this will be something that will be replicated all over Kentucky and all over the United States.
It sounds like a great idea, Senator. The question is, does it get back to Kentucky taxpayers, or does it amount to money they're saving on a project that otherwise could have been a boondoggle?
Well, it was a project that, when we went in, was losing $900,000 a year. It was hemorrhaging money. And we quickly figured out, as with most government services, it's cheaper to be done with the private sector. So we privatized that, and we're saving the taxpayers $600,000 a year. They're still being protected. We still do the fuel testing for the state of Kentucky. We're just saving the taxpayers a lot of money. So when we auctioned off the surplus equipment, it sold very well, and we returned 100% of the money back to the taxpayers of Kentucky.
It's interesting, Senator. It comes at a time where we fear that a lot of money that heads to Washington, projects that leave Washington, never really gets back to the folks affected. We've also just found out this week, Senator, that of the Hurricane Sandy money, $60 billion worth, two-thirds haven't even been spent or utilized. In New Jersey, Chris Christie's state, it's closer to 75%. You want to weigh in on that?
Well, you know, one of the things I suggested is don't give them all the money at one time. I suggested that Sandy funding be given 1 year at a time, and I actually voted to give Sandy funding, but to offset it with spending cuts. So I think there are ways you can help people. We've had need for help in Kentucky before, but I've always advocated that if you spend some extra money, that you offset it with cuts somewhere else. I actually have a bill that would say to all government employees, I'll give you a bonus if you find savings throughout government. So I think there are a lot of good government ideas that we could utilize that would save the taxpayer millions, if not billions of dollars.
But then, Senator, what do you make of the fuss that was created at the time, particularly when Governor Christie was targeting House Speaker Boehner for holding up getting that money back to New Jerseyans, because he said they desperately needed it and this is no time to dilly-dally. I'm paraphrasing. Now it turns out a year later that much of that, the majority of that, hasn't even been spent.
Yeah, I think it was an invalid argument at the time, and also a reason why we should spend money prudently, even for good causes. So I said spend it 1 year at a time and offset it through cutting foreign aid, money that we were sending overseas. If we're going to be building in New Jersey, I'm not against that, but why don't we cut some of the money we spend in Pakistan to pay for the building that we have to do in New Jersey, do it 1 year at a time. So I think there are conservative ways you can spend money, but then there are ways you can spend it where there are no spending restraints, and I think that's a mistake.
Do you think Chris Christie botched it?
Well, I think, you know, sort of this give me my money now was not really the best attitude. There was a tragedy. People were in need. But the fact that most of the money hasn't been spent a year later argues for maybe the money should have been given out a little bit at a time, and maybe that money should have been offset with spending cuts, maybe with money we're spending building things overseas.
I raise that because there is this battle for the soul of the party, gentlemen, and the sense that whether it's the Libertarian or the Tea Party side versus the more traditional Republican side, and now in your own state, gentlemen, I'll raise this with you first, Senator. Matt Bevin is the Tea Party-backed candidate who's challenging Mitch McConnell for the Republican Senate nomination. Are you in a pickle there? I mean, what do you think of that? Who do you support?
Well, I think everybody gets to make their own decision, and in a primary, every voter will. I've endorsed Senator McConnell because I think he's been a good conservative. I think he's been the leader in opposing Obamacare, and I think some of the
a lot of your
ads that try
colleagues
to
don't feel the same way. A lot of your more Tea Party colleagues say that he's been a big disappointment.
I don't know.
I mean, you don't agree.
Yeah, but I think what's been unfair is there's some ads being run in Kentucky that say that Senator McConnell was for Obamacare funding. It's just absolutely and patently untrue and not fair. He's been a leader on the balanced budget amendment. He's been a leader for fiscal responsibility. So, no, I do, but I don't see anything bad about his opponent either. I know how it is to be a challenger,
right.
And I think really we can have a good primary and, may the best man win.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you both. Very encouraging news, at least in trying to weed out some of the waste that goes on in Washington.